So you want to know which artifact is the best. Well, I really don't think there is such a thing in AFK Journey as this artifact is the best or that one is the best. Instead, every artifact has its own perks and it all comes down to what you are dealing with, which artifact would be the best for that specific situation. So let's go through all the artifacts and see where they shine the most. Also, if you find this video useful, make sure to hit that like button, I would really appreciate it. Number 1. Awakening Spell. Awakening Spell is one of the artifacts you start out with, increasing your attack and defense for your whole team and heals your weakest 3 allies for 7% HP every 10 seconds. Now if you don't know what the weakest means, it is saying the lowest current HP ratio. So not the amount of HP, but the percentage of HP you have. It will later on heal for 10% HP and for 4 allies, which is pretty good since that is almost your whole team. This is definitely my favorite artifact to use early game, since you don't have a lot of choices and it is a really good artifact if you lack healing. A good example would be if you only run Rowan for sustain or some solo sustain characters that can't survive without that extra healing you need. I use this artifact quite often, even endgame sometimes, because the defense it gives to your whole team is pretty good when your tanks aren't the only ones taking damage. It can really help your backline surviving sometimes, like against rogues, or taking AoE damage, or when your tank just dies and you have no more frontline available. Number 2. Enlightening Spell. Enlightening Spell is another artifact you have early game, and this one has some pretty unique uses, especially in PvP. Gaining increased attack speed and HP percentage for your team. It will also buff your rearmost ally, increasing attack speed by 80 for 15 seconds. Getting more levels will increase this artifact to a 100 attack speed for 20 seconds. But what makes this artifact shine and super unique is that it will also give this ally that is getting buffed control immunity. Something very useful. But while this is an artifact that is extremely useful in some situations, it is not used that much at the same time throughout the story, since it is a bit niche. So where is it used the most? Well, I see it quite often used in high rank PvP arena, because it can counter another artifact called Confining Spell that places crowd control effects on your backline, which is quite a popular artifact, but we will talk about Confining Spell a bit later in this video. Another really good thing about the attack speed that you gain is it will also increase your ult charge indirectly by attacking faster, meaning faster energy charge, and this usually causes the attack speed buffed ally to ult way faster than the enemy. So this can also be a game changer in some situations. Number 3. Starshard Spell. Starshard Spell is probably the most favorite artifact for a lot of players in the community. This artifact increases haste and HP percentage for your team, and every 4 ults casted, you will deal true damage equal to 16% of the enemy's current HP and up to 60% of your team's attack. It will also reduce the attack speed of the enemies by 60 for 4 seconds. Leveling this artifact, you will see a huge improvement of only needing to use 3 ultimates with increased damage, which is a big difference. Now earlier I mentioned haste. Just a quick explanation of what it does. It increases the frequency of the unit's normal attacks and skills by 1%, and their attack animation speed by 1% for each point of haste. So they will attack more often with this artifact, meaning more ults from more energy gained. So where do people use this artifact? The answer is almost everywhere. It is really good for AFK stages, the story, pretty good in arena, and probably the best artifact you can get for bosses in Dream Realm and world bosses, since no artifact gets even close to increasing your damage to the amount like Starshard Spell does. It can also be pretty useful against teams with a lot of sustain, helping you to push out enough damage to break through the sustain that the enemy has. This is definitely one of the best artifacts in the game. Number 4. Ironwall Spell. Ironwall increases your team's haste and vitality, haste increasing the frequency of attack skills and attack animations like I mentioned before, and vitality will increase the amount of shields gained and healing. The heals are only from self-heals unfortunately though. So with Ironwall, your frontmost ally hero will gain 15% more defense increased to 20% later, and energy gain per hit taken by 20 for the whole battle. You also gain a shield of 20% of their max HP for 6 seconds. Leveling this artifact will give you a really good upgrade of once your tank dies, the buff will move over to another hero in the front line. This can only happen once, but it is pretty good. I really like this artifact and I highly recommend using it if your frontline dies way too fast. With way too fast I mean when they break through your frontline without your backline, like Cecia having a chance to use her ult even. This is by far one of my favorite artifacts for the story and AFK stages, and some other places like Dream Realm, depending on the boss or Legend Trials. If your tank or two tanks isn't invested into that much, or a bit weak, this artifact will surely make up for the survivability it lacks. I use it quite a lot late game and it can be a game changer. But maybe you have a different experience if you already have a really strong tank. There is also a niche but very good way of using this artifact that has helped me a lot in the past. You can place your DPS in front, giving them the defense buff when you are dealing with rogues or wolves that targets your DPS or lowest HP allies no matter what you do. And this has helped me before in beating these levels, so definitely give it a shot if you are having trouble with those wolves or any rogues that does this. Number 5. Confining Spell. Confining Spell is unlocked a bit later in the story and it is a really good artifact for countering the enemy's backline. It increases your team's attack percentage and HP percentage, and after 3 seconds into the battle, it will deal magic damage to the 2 enemies in the back every 12 seconds, also making them unable to move or act for 1.5 seconds. This will increase to 2.5 seconds and the cooldown will be reduced from 12 seconds to 10 seconds after leveling the artifact. Confining can almost be used everywhere from AFK stages, story, to even the arena, and it is extremely good against enemy teams where the backline is the priority targets. In most cases, but not always, the backline is what you want to take out first, and having Confining to block the enemy's backline's damage and heals can really make a big difference. Whenever you are in doubt to which artifact to use, honestly you should just try this one out, but just keep in mind there are some enemies immune to crowd control effects, especially bosses and the leech, which can make this artifact useless in some situations too. Personally, this is one of my most favorite artifacts for PvP like Arena, because it really does make a big difference in PvP. Number 6. Blazing Spell. Blazing Spell is probably one of the least popular artifacts in the game, but it does one thing that other artifacts doesn't. It gives your whole team, like some artifacts, more defense, but then it gives something really unique that others doesn't. Defense penetration. It will shoot a fireball at the weakest enemy every 5 seconds dealing magic damage, and you unlock this artifact quite late in the game, but I honestly barely use it. The defense penetration allows you to ignore some of the enemy's defense stats with some extra single target damage. Maybe it could help a lot in some niche situations, but sadly, unlike Starshard, Blazing doesn't increase haste, so you will ult less with Blazing Spell compared to Starshard, which is quite unfortunate. It doesn't add any attack or something for more damage other than the defense penetration, making it a bit lackluster. Overall, I just think that Starshard Spell is just better if you need more damage, but let me know in the comments below if you have some good uses and tips for Blazing Spell. So now comes the most important question: which one is the best? Speaking in general, I would say Starshard Spell is the best for damage and bossing, Confining Spell for PvP and disabling backlines, and Ironwall if you need more survivability for your frontline. But my best advice is to just try them all out if you are stuck in a stage or a level and see which one works for you. Sometimes you will be surprised and one of them performs way better than you imagined. Now that you know about artifacts, make sure to check out this video to prepare yourself with the start of endgame before you make some mistakes that could make it pretty rough later in the game.